I was in reality more horrified than astonished.
Well, of course, like, this is interesting to us because we're experiencing it in a safe zone. You know, me in my room, you in your little TV screen. Well, I guess me in your TV screen and you in your room. Or wherever you are. Well, actually, if you're watching this while you're being kidnapped, then you're not being safe. In that case, why are you watching this while you're being kidnapped? Go call the police or something. Good evening, girls and ghouls, fiends and friends, and welcome to a night with Volksferatu. Good evening, everybody, and happy Hallows Eve. Happy best month in the year, Halloween. Sorry, October. I just assumed that all of October is Halloween. And as a goth, that's like mostly what the case is. I can't see you there. So, okay, I want to put that away now. So welcome to a night with Volksferatu, where we're going to be playing spooky games for the month of October, November, and December. If everybody's ready, let's dive in. Happy Halloween. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another frightening episode of Halloween. My fucking makeup is on my forehead.
Dr. Ainley explained that even if he caught him and brought him back to the colony, he would immediately head right back for the mountains. But why?
Yeah, I like Lovecraft, but I don't like a lot of his works. For one, a lot of times when he's describing something, he's just like, "Oh my god, it's so scary, you can't even imagine how scary it is. Oh, it's that scary." I think some of the language he uses is kind of boring to read, and he's kind of racist. So, those are the reasons why I don't really like H.P. Lovecraft, but he did, his mythos is legendary and very cool. So, we'll dip our toes a little bit in this game, we'll see what happens.
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
Oh!
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
Okay, I understand. So that little button makes the thing go next. I get it.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation.
Terrifying. Open ocean. See? Fuck that.
So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners. So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time. When I finally found myself adrift and free,
What are these
I had but
achievements?
little idea of my surroundings. Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator.
What are these sounds? Do you hear these sounds?
Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or
man,
coastline
that is
was
so
in sight.
terrifying. Sounds great though.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land. But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue. The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous. When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished.
Well, of course, like, this is interesting to us because we're experiencing it in a safe zone. You know, me in my room, you in your little TV screen. Well, I guess me in your TV screen and you in your room, or wherever you are. Well, actually, if you're watching this while you're being kidnapped, then you're not being safe. In that case, why are you watching this while you're being kidnapped? Go call the police or something.
Fish, and of other, less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity.
Okay, they should have really got Warner E. Herzog to narrate this, you know? Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unbearable hideousness.
There was nothing within hearing, and nothing in sight, save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Yeah, walk towards it.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position.
I've gone mad.
Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface.
Okay,
exposing
logical.
Regions
Logical,
innumerable
fair.
Millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable
What the
watery
fuck is that
depths.
thing?
So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me.
I'm sorry, guys. 1 second. Photographer in me is like, can we get rid of that text so I can take a picture? But, no.
Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things. For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens.
Okay, so this is pretty cool. I should probably give my take when this experience is over. So let's keep
As the
going.
day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time.
That thing is still moving.
That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the
You
vanished
slept
sea
here?
and possible rescue. On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
Alright, let's set out boldly. Let's do it. You could have walked around that squid. You had to step on it.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
Okay, just saw that eye. Creeped me out a little bit. Alright, more dead things. Keep walking.
That night, I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
I'm still thinking about that achievement I got by escaping
By the fourth
escaping the boat.
I attained the base of the
By just clicking a button.
mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance.
Well, dumb, man. All that logic you used about, like, the seafloor, you don't understand that things are smaller the further they are away. Come on, brother.
An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface.
What's that light over there? You see that light?
Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill. I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again.
What was I talking about? Like, oh, I've read these, like, visions, but they're too crazy. They're too crazy. I can't tell you about them. They're so crazy.
And in the glow of the moon, I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy.
Yeah, I guess.
Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
Alright, the crest. The pack.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine.
What?
I felt myself on the edge of the world,
I can't see anything.
peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night.
Oh, so we were exploring the bottom of a sea. Because that's what that looks like down there.
Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise
Oh,
Lost
shout out to Dante.
and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
The what? Does that moon have a face? Perhaps.
Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent, whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual. Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon. That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express. For despite its enormous magnitude, and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young.
Oh, this might be like a tomb
I
or
perceived
something.
beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
Alright, I'm getting a little bit uneasy here, guys.
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm.
Markings. Water? Yeah, so, sea life up above. Water. Looks like fish people underneath, which is probably the people or the entities that worshipped Cthulhu and like all those other things. Then probably the lieutenants, the 4 markings, and then 2 giant whales of some sort, probably guardians of something. And at the bottom, the big man himself.
And
Or
revealed the
it's
fact
the big
that
it
a
itself.
far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures. The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me, and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books.
Right, so fish.
Consisting
Again?
for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain.
Okay.
It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
So they're saying here that Lovecraft based a lot of his storytelling methods, such as telling the story through carvings, through journals and characters' notes, islands emerging from the oceans, and based fictional beings and deities based on real life events and mythologies, which is like, I feel like a lot of people do that, but okay.
Plainly visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a Doré. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men, though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint.
3rd time he's using this technique.
Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer. They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself.
Okay, yeah, this I'm most curious about. I'm not sure exactly what this means. Maybe the whales are the natural enemy of, like, the Lovecraftian creatures?
I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment
They're as
decided
big as
that they were
whales.
merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born. Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist,
It's a good line.
I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it. With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters. Fiend-like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the sloping cliff and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little. I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing. I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods. When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital, brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing, nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe. Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Dagon was the main entity worshipped. Oh, this Dagon was real. Okay. Entity worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The word for grain is a monster. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamia, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquest. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in an Assyrian poem, and an underworld prisoner warder in one of the Babylonian texts. He is often mistaken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name, as in Hebrew the word dag means fish. In H.P. Lovecraft's work, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that reside in the oceans. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. Cool. Hello?
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
He was hopelessly conventional. That's what all of us goths say whenever we encounter somebody who doesn't understand all of this. Okay, and as always, the author didn't want to really make a mythos and blow it out of proportion, but, you know, publishers do because of money. I'm definitely going a little crazy. Why am I just walking back and forth in my room?
It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing. I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Word. Respect. Lovecraft hated tobacco. Solid. I appreciate that. Even though he used to smoke when he was 12 in order to look and feel like an adult. He quit as soon as he started wearing long pants. He also had a very strong opinion about alcohol. I have never tasted intoxicating liquor. I never intend to, having a strong aesthetic disgust at anything which blunts or coerces the delicate natural equipoise of the evolved human intellect and imagination. Well, I will argue that certain things open certain pathways for you to be more creative. Drinking excited my personal reprehensions, hence I don't drink. Let the herd do what they will. I am rather in favor of prohibition, the prohibition of anyone antisocial force as the prohibition of any one antisocial force as well as a source. Yeah, I don't like drinking either. I'll have a shot if I'm at a party or something, but I will not drink beer. I don't like the taste, and I don't like the taste.
Often, I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm. A mere freak of fever as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man of war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium. The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it. It shall not find me. God, that hand! The window! The window!
Well, okay. A short little experience with Dagon. Alright, let me get my final thoughts on this. This was like a Telltale game that gave you less freedom, but more of a emotional bang for your buck, because it's telling stories that are already famous in real life compared to just in a Telltale game where you're experiencing a game that the writers are writing for you. This is also a writer writing a book, but like this is already has roots in real life, so it packs more of a punch. I liked it. It was cool. That was it, young guys. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, let me know. Give it a like, give me a sub, interact with me in the comments, drink some water, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.